Yes.
So this morning, I'm delighted and really excited to welcome Neil O'Brien as our guest on Meet the Author. So this is our 11th episode, and Neil and I have known each other for probably what, 5, 6 years, probably
Yeah.
maybe pre-COVID.
Around that, I'd say, Paul. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then Neil's a fellow accountant, one of the privileged few, because I think the word I use is privileged, because I think as accountant, we're privileged to share our clients' intimate financial details. There's not that many people that we would be willing to share that information with. So that's why I use the word privileged in that way. So
Yeah.
Neil's book here that you can see, 101 Business Lessons from a Recovering Accountant. So Neil's got a copy as well.
Yeah.
So Neil sent me a copy of the book quite a few years ago. I read the book, I devoured the book. And what I love about Neil's approach and Neil's style is Neil gets the message across through stories. And what we'll
Mm.
do is as we start to talk about his book, we'll start to share some of those stories, which are stories about George Clooney, Margaret Thatcher as window cleaner, etc., etc. And I think, like me, you'll love those stories because actually by telling a story and by putting the message across through a story actually means it probably is more likely to stick with you because stories
Yes.
have been I guess the thing that has held most cultures together,
Mm.
and kept the history alive and kept the message alive. So Neil, I'd like you to share with us initially is your story, your journey. What's led you to be where you are today, and how have you suddenly arrived here?
Yeah. And thank you, Paul. Thank you very much for having me on. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I've seen some of your other interviews, so I'm very grateful to you. And it's funny you say stories there because storytelling is the heart of this book, isn't it, as you mentioned? And like a quick little background to that is that in Ireland, storytelling, there's a really strong tradition of storytelling in Ireland. And like hundreds of years ago, the Shanachie was the person who told the stories. And after the king or the chieftain, the Shanachie was the next most powerful person in the village because they would sit down, everyone would gather around them at the night and they start telling a story. And sometimes these stories would go on for night after night. So you had to draw in the audience. And it was a way of not just entertaining, but it was a way of passing on culture and history and so on. So storytelling is central to us as humans, how we evolved, how we developed. So storytelling is the heart of this book. My journey, Paul, interesting. You call me an accountant. I'll call myself a recovering accountant. Okay. Because I trained as an accountant, but I left accounting behind 23 years ago. I grew up in Ireland, five children in the family, out in the countryside, loved a very happy childhood. The days would be fishing, playing soccer, golfing, cycling, just out and about all day. Very happy childhood. Always liked numbers. So my dad was a bookkeeper. So when it came to deciding what to do, I wanted to do numbers. I chose management accounting because I thought it was a bit more exciting than tax and audit. Okay, nothing tax and audit are important, of course, but there was something about management accounting appealed to me. Went to college in Ireland. 4 years after that, started working in London. I was in London for a few years. Then got a green card for America. Spent some time in America. Came back to Ireland and continued working as a management accountant for 15 years. But the day the recovering accountant, it all changed for me. It's the very first story in the book. It all changed for me the day I stumbled on 80/20, stumbled on it. And I knew my career, my business life was never going to be the same again. I was working for this electronics company and they were subcontract manufacturers. So they made printed circuit boards for Dell and Apple and all these companies. They had 36 customers. And as soon as the exciting work of month end and budget was over, I would do pricing and I love profitability. I wanted to find out about the profitability of these 36 customers. So I got a big spreadsheet. I put their sales for the last 6 months along the top, the cost of sales, and then I drilled into the overheads and I started allocating them across customer. So I ended up with a profit and loss per customer, 36 customers. And then I sorted them from left to right. So the most profitable were on the left, and I went down in descending order. What I discovered, 36 customers, three of them were giving that business 91% of net profits. So they were the whales. And within that, one of the three were giving them 60%. You were the super whale. And about at the other end, there was about 16 customers were losing money. And I thought, like, this is the most powerful thing I've ever seen. And then of course, I wanted to find out if it applied to other businesses. So I had friends who had businesses. So in the evening time, one person had a fabricator, another woman had a printing company, training company, accountants, and so on. So over the course of the next year or two, I would do a bit of analysis for them. And lo and behold, I found that the 80/20 applies to every business. So, and what it means mainly for me is profitability. It applies in lots of ways. When you think about profitability, that electronics company where 3 out of 36 customers were giving them 91% of profits and 16 were losing money. Whales and sardines, every business has a smallish number of profitable whales and lots of sardines. The only difference is, does the business have lots of whales or a small number? The only difference is the mix of those. And so I left accounting in 2003 and started my own consulting business. And that's what I've been doing since then, Paul. I'm consulting, I do 80/20 analysis, and I help companies price their products properly. A lot of businesses just don't know how to price properly. I've developed this 7-step process. I go through all different angles to set the pricing at the right level to maximize profits. And the other thing I do is I'll go in and I'll drill into the numbers. I'll identify their whales and sardines, profitable whales and sardines, and you build your whole strategy around that. You want more whales. You want to focus your marketing on whales, not sardines. You want to mind them, nurture them, grow them. And I've seen businesses double their profits in 9 months just with 80/20, implementing an 80/20 strategy. So and masterminds is the other thing. I totally love masterminds. Joined one about 10 years ago. It was in the UK. And set up my own masterminds. I've run them and totally love the mastermind concept.
So I've been privileged to be a guest on one of your masterminds, and it's a format that really works. But what I wanted to do
Yeah,
is rewind a little bit
yeah,
and focus on the 80/20 principle, because you and I, total advocates, totally understand, totally believe in the 80/20 principle. And I think for me, the
yeah,
defining moment on the 80/20 principle was when I read Richard Koch's book, KOCH, the 80/20
yes,
principle. And Richard is an interesting guy. He's written a number of books. He's a successful entrepreneur in his own right, and he lives and breathes the 80/20 principle.
yeah,
And the story I always tell about Richard Koch was that Richard, first class honours degree at Cambridge, and I think it's in economics, I think. And
mm,
basically, what Richard found was that 20% of the subjects came at 80% of the time.
mm,
So Richard focused his attention on the 20% of the subjects that came 80% of the time in the exams, and lo and behold, he's a first class honours degree. And I think most people don't understand that the 80/20 principle relates to all aspects of our lives, in that you and I probably wear 20% of our clothes 80% of the time.
yes, yes,
You and I, so the 80/20 principle applies, whether it's 80/20, whether it's 70/30, whether it's 90/10, 85,
yes,
15, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. It's the fact that there is a proven relationship between them. And what I love about your book is that you've talked about whales, baby whales, and sardines. And I wondered whether you'd like to elaborate a little bit on whales, baby whales, and sardines. And as I said to you earlier, I'm delighted that you have a picture of a whale behind you, an orca whale, which actually
yeah,
sets us
yes,
to talk about
yeah,
whales,
yeah,
baby whales, etc.
absolutely. So, like, maybe the best way to describe the whales, baby whales, and sardines is with another story. Well, I think as we love stories. So it's in the book. There's a story about Mrs. Murphy who came to a printer client of mine to get an invitations for her grandson's 21st birthday. Okay. And at the time I was working with this printer and I was analyzing, I was doing 80/20 analysis. So what I decided to do was I looked at all the jobs they did in a week. Okay. Or the typical jobs, they did about 60 jobs in a week, this printer. And so I was going through them and I noticed this one, Mrs. Murphy. So what happened is she came in, the printer sat down with her, went through designs for her for her grandson's 21st birthday, spent about half an hour with her. He worked on the design, sent it to her, sent it to this woman's daughter. She looked at it. The daughter-in-law was involved. They were all looking, toing and froing, right, with this design before they finalized it. So all this work went into it. Then the printer had to go set up the printer, yeah, put in the right colors and so on, to run these 200 invitations through, looked at them, there was a little smudge in the corner. Mrs. Murphy's very fussy, ran them through again, ran them through the whole process, into packaging, raised the invoice, phone Mrs. Murphy, dump them, right? So there's a lot of work went into that, yeah? How much was Mrs. Murphy charged? 70 euros. Yeah, 70 euros for all that. Okay. And when I costed it out, it should have been over 200. So this is one of the things. At the same time, they had orders. One of their whale customers, they did work for a college and a hospital. They'd done that design work once, yeah, had all the design work done once, and they got an email from the hospital towards the end of the month. We need 2,000 of this form. We need 1,500 that form, and they ran them through. Yeah, so you could see what happens there. What happens in business is that people don't realize is that there's a minimum cost within business with any customer. Yeah, there's a minimum cost, and Mrs. Murphy is a prime example. She was a loss maker because all those steps you have to go through, yeah, for one-off orders, you're going to lose money on that. If you go through it and it's a repeat order, they went through it for the hospital, but they only went through it once, and the hospital ordered big orders every month. So that's kind of like how the whales. And so what we did there was, what do you do with that information? We doubled the price on the one-off orders. It went from 70 to 140. And a while later, the printer, without even saying it to me, increased it to 200. So what that meant is that when you had one-off orders coming along, they were used to paying 70, now 200. Oh, that's very expensive. We sent them down to our competitor down the road, right? Who probably thought we were gone mad, but they were probably charging them. That allowed the printer, you know what, that half hour he was spending with Mrs. Murphy was now freed up. He went, I was encouraging him to go talk to his whales. He went and spoke to the hospital and got the 2 orders up to 4. And they also landed another whale. Their profits doubled in 8 months, that business. Yeah?
8 months.
8 months, yes. Because what you're doing, you're getting a double whammy. You're taking out a negative, which is a loss maker. We filtered out those one-off orders and replaced it with whales. So imagine, well, you're a numbers guy. If you take out a negative and replace it with a positive, you're getting it's a double benefit. And here's the interesting thing. They didn't have to do any extra work. They still had an average of 60 orders a month, 8 months later, but those jobs were more profitable. Their mix did more profitable jobs in that mix. They still had the odd sardine. There was some sardines, and that's fine because if somebody comes along and it's your first cousin or the guy you play golf with every Saturday, okay, look, we look after him. You'll always have a small sardines. You can keep them if you want to, but they should be a real minimum, smallish exceptions, not 30% or 35%, I think it was, in the case of that printer. 35% of their orders were losing money.
So I guess the lesson from that story about Mrs. Murphy and the printer is most businesses don't have a minimum price, do they? They take all comers.
Yeah. And the problem with the problem really, Paul, is that most pricing systems don't cover the small orders or the complex. If any order is complex, the pricing systems don't charge enough to cover small orders or complex orders. That's the problem.
So what I think is interesting is we have done the 80/20 analysis for our own business, and also what we've done is with the 20% that generates 80% of the clients, we've actually looked at what are the common characteristics to come up with an ideal client profile. And I think that's a really interesting exercise. So typically for older people, their best clients are people they enjoy working with, people who respond, people who pay on time, people that jobs are profitable, etc., etc. And I think not enough businesses actually have gone through that process to work out what the common characteristics to form their ideal profile. And also the second thing for me that I learned was that if I free up capacity, which is what we're talking about, we're freeing up capacity because we're not doing the smaller jobs, is that my best clients, my biggest clients, will actually buy more from me if I have the time to talk to them. And I think one of the exercises that we did that you probably come across is what's called the windows of opportunity matrix. You look at your service lines across the top, look at your ideal clients down the side, work out who's buying what, and can we fill in the gaps. So, and what we found is that our best clients, we could fill in the gaps with, we could get more money from them, we could actually make them more ideal, we could actually generate more sales to them, more profit from them. And I think not enough businesses have actually done that exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's applicable to all business. You know, accountants, I've worked with a lot of accountants as well. And it's a characteristic of a lot of progressive accountants is as they grow the business and want to offer more advisory, management accounts and so on. What many of them do is they do it with much less clients. They're actually getting rid of the sardines. So what you'd see if an accountant has, say, 500 clients, they classify them as A, B, C, D, based on criteria like fees, recoverability rate. Are they referring you? Are they quick to pay or whatever? You can classify them. But generally, the D's are smaller clients, and they take up a disproportionate amount of time. One accountant I looked at had, I think it was 37% of their D clients were giving them 6% of fees. 37% of clients giving 6% of fees. Now, do you think were those clients taking 6% of time or more? They were taking a lot more than 6% of time, because back to what I said about the printer, there was a minimum time and effort to deal with any client. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but the number of businesses I've worked with who, like the printer, who've fired, you either get rid of clients or you don't take on any more. You're filtering them out before they even get in. What that does is it frees you up to look after your whale clients, to look after them, because most of the whale clients could do with more service, like you just touched on earlier on. And I think business owners, they're afraid. They think, oh, I can't say no. I can't say no. I can't get rid of clients. I can't say no to a sale. But they're not thinking about, is this client profitable or not?
Because one of the things that I was always taught is your biggest customer is you.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
most people in business don't actually realize that and haven't really accepted that.
Mm.
And what we do is that we would regularly part company with people that we don't think are the right fit, and we invite them to find happiness elsewhere. And that we
Yeah.
would actually signpost them, and we would actually say to people, how do you think it's working out between us? How do you think the relationship is? Oh, well, it's this, it's that, the rest of it. Well, let me tell you how I feel. The
Mm.
team members cringe every time you ring up. It's always an issue. It's always a problem. It's always and actually, can I suggest? I think now's the time to move on for you to build a relationship with someone new. You can start afresh. Got no history, and
Yeah.
let me actually point you in the right direction. Because, as you said with Mrs. Murphy, is one of the
Mm.
things that we do is that if we don't believe that we're the right fit, we will pass clients on to accountants. We'll recommend accountants who we believe are the right fit.
Yeah.
And as you said, that's quite a bold thing, and that's quite a good thing, because I think Ainsley Damrow that I interviewed on Meet the Author. One of the things
Mm.
he says is the most successful businesses, the most successful accountants are the ones that are strict on the people that you take on, the
Mm.
new customers. They're quite commercial on who they work with. They're quite focused on characteristics of an ideal customer. And basically, if you don't meet that criteria, then basically you're not the right fit, and they would then pass
Yeah.
them on. And
Yes.
which leads me
Um,
into the next thing that you talk about in the book, which I loved, is discounting.
yes. Or not
And
discounting.
discounting is an enemy of all businesses, isn't it?
Yes, yes. And again, it's something that's, I think a lot of business people, business owners, they're so focused on the sale that they don't think about the profit. Okay, so it's sale, sale, sale. And I'm sure you've seen lots of numbers like this. I've often worked it up for business owners. They're there talking to a client or prospective client, and they're saying, I can, give them a price, 5 grand. And there's, oh, geez, that's very expensive. Oh no, can you sharpen your pencil there? What can you do for me on price? And they'll knock 5 or 10% off it. Okay. Now you've seen numbers on this, Paul. On average, if you give a business a 10% discount, you're probably wiping out your profit. Or you're certainly having it. And you've seen numbers. I've done all kinds of numbers on this. The impact it has on your profit, it is a massive impact on your profit. I mean, globally, the average net profit of businesses globally is only 7%. Okay. That means if the sales are 100, the total costs are 93. Now, if you give someone a 10% discount, right, you've only a 7% net margin, you're in big trouble. You're not gone into loss. And even if you have a 20% margin, let's say you have a 20% net profit margin. So your sales are 100, your total costs are 80, net profit is 20. Give somebody a 10% discount. What happens to profit? You've just halved it. Okay, you've just halved your profit. Now, that's bad until you realize if you do that with all your clients and you have 100 customers, you need to sign another 100 just to get you back to your profit you should have.
And I think there is a um, incentive in most people's minds to discount because I need the turnover, I need the money, I need,
Yeah.
etc.
Yes.
So what I've learned is that if I was to give a discount, there has to be a trade-off,
Mm,
and the trade-off needs to be quicker payment up front. The trade-off needs to be maybe we supply less, maybe we cut some of the services out, some of the products out.
mm,
And I think the only way that I would really countenance a discount for a business is to make that trade-off, whatever that trade-off needs to be. Or
mm.
that I'm happy to give you a 10% discount, Neil, but you need to come up with two customers I can speak to. You need to introduce me to
Yeah,
two other businesses. So there's actually sort of a quid pro quo type of situation. But
yes.
discounting is an anathema to me, is so um, destructive to businesses' profitability that most people don't understand it, and they underestimate the impact.
Yeah. And what I'd suggest there, Paul, is I know what you're doing, and it is quite common. You're saying I'll give you this if you do this for me. I take a different approach. I don't think you should discount at all. But what you can do, what I suggest, right? Don't discount because you're still giving away the profit, okay? So don't discount. But a lot of people they want to get something. Some people just are always going to haggle, okay? So what I suggest instead is give them something. Give them something that's low cost to you, but is high value to them. Okay. Like with a furniture shop, we say instead of discounting, throw in some cushions, right? Throw in some nice cushions that they'll go, that as of, oh my God, that's lovely. It cost them probably 15 quid on a 3,000 sale, right? Throw in some cushions. For your sake, what you could do is if you had, I know if an accountant or service provider, if you have ebooks, if you have videos, if you have information, you can send them, do that. Or something else you can do is, give them a bit of time an hour, maybe I'll give you an hour review at the end of the session, or you're working with somebody, I'll come back a month later, 3 months later, and review how you're getting on. Because that's only going to cost you a bit of time, which I imagine you'll free up from somewhere else. It's not going to cost you a profit.
Okay, I take on board that lesson, and as I say, every day's a school day. We're always learning, and I think it's always important to
Yes,
talk to other people to get a different
yeah,
perspective. So, coming
yes.
back to your book, we talked about business lessons from the cleaner Margaret Thatcher and George Clooney. Would you like to
Yeah,
share one of those with the listeners?
absolutely. Do you have any particular favorites yourself?
Well, being of a certain age, I remember Maggie Thatcher.
Yes. Um, that's a funny one, and she's remembered in Ireland as well, maybe a bit differently from how other people might remember her. Yeah, it's I think Maggie Thatcher and the hairy French bikers is the story, right? And a lot of the stories in the book, a lot of them are my own, and then others I might see somebody else talking about them. So I was thinking somebody, I think it was where I got this from is somebody was had this group of people that they were advising on sending emails and blogs. And this person sent an email, and I think it was when Maggie Thatcher died. So this person sent an email about Maggie Thatcher, and I think this person was based in France actually. So it was like I think there was like let's say they had 5,000 people on their email list, and she wrote an email about Maggie Thatcher, and like 10 people sent really angry emails, and because Maggie Thatcher apparently had some beef with French bikers at some stage, right? So 10 bikers on her list sent really angry emails and unsubscribed. Okay. But the other 5,950 or 90 or whatever it was, right? Obviously didn't. And it was just, email marketing is a very interesting thing. At times it's advisable to be a bit contrarian and put an opinion out there because some people will leave you, but the people who stay, you're actually pulling them a bit closer to you, you know. Every so often I have a bit of a rant, about the bank, when the banks here in Ireland, some of them are not the most efficient, we'll say, right? And to deal with, and they can be challenging to deal with. And if I do a little rant, a blog post or video about my experience dealing with a bank, I get loads of people. I get loads of people, liking it and wait till I tell you what happened to me and all this kind of stuff. Now, if two bankers, people who work for the bank, aren't happy, that's fine. I'm not, I don't care too much. So 20 people love it and two people don't. So it's that idea of Don't be afraid to be contrarian and put a bit of personality into your emails. Okay, obviously without being too extreme about anything.
Yeah, so one of the stories I always tell it because it's always in the subject matter, isn't it? So, um, Bob in the town that I'm based in has 15 hairdressers. It sort of sets my age a little bit because I talk about Yellow Pages. So back in Yellow Pages, I wrote to all of the 15 hairdressers. I wrote, and my strapline was, "Who's cutting it for you?"
Very good.
And of the 15, three actually responded after one letter. And one of them I actually got some business from that was worth a lot of money to me. And actually,
Yeah,
it's all in the subject line because actually, what you need to do is you need to pique someone's interest because I think we all get so many emails. So it leads me on to one of my next questions is that what in your opinion is the cheapest and easiest way to market?
question. The most effective marketing I've ever done, Paul, is referrals and clients. I came across a system. I was in business a couple of years. I was chatting to this coach. He was actually from New Zealand, and he was telling me about this system he used. And at the time, I was doing direct mail. I was doing networking. I was doing seminars. I was doing, and he told me about the system. And I said, "What else are you doing?" He said, "That's it. That's the only marketing I do. I have this method or asking my clients for a referral." So came back to Ireland. I tried it a couple of times, didn't work. I said I'd try it once more. And then I tried it with bar restaurant I worked with, and I got two referrals, two new clients. And from then on, it just worked like a dream. Um, and what I found about it was 2 years later, I look back after starting to use, I look back and over 60% of my new clients had come just from asking clients for referrals. And there's a way of doing it. What I love about it is that it's in terms of for the time input, okay? You might talk to a client for 15 minutes and get a client from it. The time input, the quality, the conversion rate was sky high. It was like 90%. And this is a 14-step process. I won't go into the whole thing, but what you're doing really is you're saying to your client's an engineer, you're really going to, I'd love another client like you. And you tell them exactly what you want. And then when they identify somebody, you kind of say, look, okay, so we've worked together, I've saved you, I've added 100 grand to your bottom line. Would you mind phoning, let's call him John, tell him about the work we've done together, the benefit you've gotten, and ask him would he be interested in taking a phone call from me. So your client makes the call. If John, if John is interested in talking to me, obviously he knows what I've done. It's a warm introduction. So I feel like it's rolling marketing and sales into one. And I think my conversion rate was about 90% from that method.
That's brilliant. So we use a slightly different take on that. So
Yeah.
coming back to the 80/20 principle, we looked at our top 20 clients and we actually sent them thank you cards.
Mm.
So it was a bespoke card with thank you on it that we'd had printed, and it would say, Neil, we love working with people like you. Is there anyone that you know that we should be in touch with to make it easier for you? I've enclosed five of my business cards.
Okay.
And we sent out 25 6 weeks ago. After the 25 had gone, a week later, I had two leads.
Brilliant. Yeah. And something else I've done recently, well, go through direct mail. Okay, I have this letter I used a number of years ago that has a specific call to action at the bottom. So 2 weeks ago, I sent out 10 letters to strangers. Like there were construction companies doing 50, 60 million, 10 companies I didn't know, and within 2 working days, I'd gotten 3 emails from people and one phone call from 10 letters to cold prospects. I've never seen a response like that before. I did use Claude, all right, gave me some pointers. It was benchmarking. I was offering them benchmarking, a one-page benchmark report on their sector. So that was a pretty impressive response.
And actually, I think for me, I think snail mail, direct mail, I
Mm.
think is a better way to get through to people in today's environment because I don't know how many emails you get a day. How many emails would you get a day?
Lots. Yeah, about 100.
Yeah, I'm similar. And let's be honest about it. We all like to think that we give them all due care and consideration, but some of them we perhaps skim read and we don't actually, if the subject
Yeah.
line hasn't really got our attention. Whereas How many letters do you get delivered by the postman every day,
No,
Neil?
no. Yeah, handwritten with a handwritten, and this is it, like the handwritten envelope with a stamp, I think is critical, you know.
Yeah. Um, what I also loved about your book is that you told some pricing lessons from Picasso with the nail,
Yeah.
and I wondered whether you'd like to share that story with us.
Yeah, I mean, great stories, aren't they? You'd see them pop up in different places. I mean, the nail one you've probably seen before. The Picasso one is a bit different. I think this woman was strolling along a street in Paris one day, and she was really amazed to see this Picasso sitting down on the pavement sketching people. So she couldn't believe it. So she asked him, could he sketch her? Yeah. So a short while later, he hands her a sketch of herself, and she says, "How much is that?" And he says, say it was francs, 5,000 francs, you know. She goes, "What? 5,000 francs? Sure, that only took a few minutes. How can it be 5,000 francs?" And he said, "No, my dear, that took me a lifetime." So like, you know, it's that value. It's not about the time. It's about what is the output? What is the benefit? Imagine getting a sketch from Picasso. Like, how many people get a sketch of you done by Picasso? What's that worth, you know? So it's that idea of, you know, not pricing on time, but pricing on the value, the tangible value you've delivered to somebody. What's it worth to somebody? Yeah.
And I think the point that I would make on that is that I've learned over the years is that
Yeah.
Picasso doesn't determine the value. It's the customer determines the value, isn't it? It's because if it's
Yes.
valuable to them, they'll pay it. If it's not valuable to them, they won't pay it. And we
Yes.
obviously know what our inputs, what our costs are. But what I've learned quite recently and it's come to the fore is it's all about the outputs. It's all about the outcome. That lady's got a picture by Picasso, which
Yes.
not everybody does, not everybody has, and actually that is the value in it, isn't it? It's a unique picture by Picasso.
Mm. Yes. Yes. So it's the value, and you know, it's really interesting because I mean, at times we don't know the value, so sometimes you have to test the market. And what I've done with people before, this company that made these units, electrical units that go on walls, they were supplying large companies and so on. And we tested the market. So what we did is we put up the prices 10% and there was no resistance. So we put them up again the following month, 10%. We put them up the third month, no resistance. We put them up the fourth time and there was resistance. So we brought it back down again. Yeah. And like sometimes there's only one way to test the market, and that is you need to charge different prices and see how people respond.
And that's almost the same as with your marketing. We almost read different messages to work out what is the right message for our target audience, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, 100%. Yeah.
So you mentioned in your book that one of the most dangerous phrases in business, in your opinion, is my business is different.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I heard it only a couple of days ago from a woman. Yeah, my business is different. And see, I think when people say that, Paul, what they mean is what I do is different. Yeah. So like this woman was a coach and she was going after um menopausal women in certain countries. So I think what she meant was that, oh, what I do is different. So the type of coaching who she was targeting was different. But like the fundamentals of business are the same for everybody. And I think that's what people missed. Like the whale is a great example. 80/20 applies to every business. Yeah. The psychology of selling, setting your pricing, how you market, what works, what doesn't work. It doesn't matter what you do. Those fundamentals are the same for everyone. And I think that's what people miss sometimes, that they get so hung up on, oh no, I'm different, you know. So that doesn't apply to me. So they have a closed mind and they're just not open to new ideas, and that makes business very difficult.
And the other dangerous phrase, according to me, is we've always done it that way.
Yeah, yeah. That's how we do things around here. Yeah. And it's about adapting, isn't it? Look what AI. I mean, imagine people sticking to that attitude with AI coming down the road, like of accountants, every business, but accountants. I mean, accountant business is going to be unrecognizable in 5 years' time. Accountants will be unrecognizable, even 2 years' time. And the people who think, "I know we'll keep doing it the old way," are just going to be left behind. You know, as in Darwin said, it's not the strongest who survive; it's the ones who are most adaptable, isn't it?
And what I love about your podcast, Neil, is that speaking to people who are at the leading edge of the accounting profession, and they're actually challenging the status quo. They're actually disrupting things, they're finding better ways to do things, and they're ahead of the curve. And I think the beauty about business, about life, is we can all learn from each other. And I think most people, if you approach them in the right way, will help you. And
Yes,
that would be my experience.
yes.
So finally, what would you say are your top three tips to people in business today? What actions do you think they need to consider?
Okay. Well, we maybe well AI is probably, they do need to, but I suppose maybe I'd leave that aside for now. I think we've just touched on that. I mean, the core principles for me, well, are the 80/20 one we've touched on already. Okay. I mean, if you're in business and you don't go and look at your profitability of your clients, you will continue, but maybe 3 out of 10 clients are losing you money. Okay. So you're going to put valuable time and effort into those clients that are losing you money. If you do the analysis, identify your whales and sardines and change the mix, just like that printer did, just that, you'll do the same number of work, the same hours, you might have the same number of customers, but the customers you have are more profitable because you have more whales and less sardines. And that can have a huge impact on your profit. So 80/20 pricing is the other thing I do a lot of work. It's just to make sure that you're pricing correctly, that like when you give out a price, do you know how much profit is in there? Quite often people don't, they just give out a price and they don't know how much profit is in there. So very important that you've got a system, a method of pricing that down the bottom you can see how much profit is in there. Because then if somebody comes along and starts haggling with you, you can see exactly, oh, if you give them a 5% discount, well, I'm having my profit. Well, no, I don't want to do that. And I suppose the other referrals when I touched on earlier on, we all know how important it is, but like how much time and effort do you put into generating referrals? Like you did it recently, I do it. People say, oh, referrals are great, but then if you ask them, well, how much time have you put into generating referrals in the last month? Probably little or nothing. So make sure allocate half an hour, 15 minutes a week to picking up the phone to referral partners, to customers, or whatever, and you should be asking for referrals every single week.
Okay, that is really wonderful. So, is there going to be a sequel to the book?
Good question. Well, I've plenty of blogs anyway. At one stage I was going to write one for accountants, but I suppose next year would be a good time, Paul. Next year will be 10 years. So I think maybe it might be time, yeah, because I'm often asked about that. And yeah, so and I call it the lazy way to writing the book. I probably have another 101 blogs that I've written since then, or 201. I can go through them and pick out the best ones and publish it. Yes.
So, finally, what I'd love to do is end on a story. And there's a story in the book about your window cleaner. And I wondered whether you'd
Yes.
like to share that as a final story.
Yes, I'd be delighted to. It's funny, I was only flicking through the book earlier on, Paul, and that's one I picked up actually. And again, I think this is really, I'd say it was, this about 20 years ago. It happened. I was, living in a housing estates, about 80 houses, and people were always knocking on my door. Do you want your windows? Do you want your windows cleaned? Do you want your gutters cleaned? Do you want your driveway power washed? Okay. And I'm looking at them. I don't know who they are. Some of them are a bit shady looking. Okay. No, thanks. So this guy knocked on my door one day. Would you like your windows cleaned? Don't know him. No, thanks. But he was a bit persistent. So he said, look, I'm cleaning windows for other people in the estate. I clean windows for this person, that person. And I knew one of the people. So now I'm kind of, okay, I'm warming a little bit. He said, it'll only take 10 minutes. We'll finish in a jiffy. Tenner, right? I live in a bungalow anyway. It made it a bit easier for him, right? So he finished, paid him. Then he said, I'll be back around in about 6 weeks. He said, if you like, I could call again. I said, fine, thinking I'd never see him again. He said, look, if you don't mind, would you have a card or could I take your number and I can give you a call the day before? I thought, okay, gave him my card. Again, thinking I wasn't going to hear from him. Rang me about 6 weeks later, phone call. Hi, this is Simon. I'm in the area tomorrow. Do you need your windows cleaned? And I said, I do, but I'm out most of the day. He said, no problem. Sure, if you want, you can leave a tenner under the bin out the back and I'll get it. Fine. So Simon was cleaning my windows for years, right? And I thought, like, what a great system. First of all, he did a kind of warm, he introduced himself by mentioning the other people, right? Because otherwise he wouldn't have got the first job. But I thought the repeat one, he made it easy for me to buy for him to buy from him again. And I thought, well, that's a brilliant example because I mean, it's those repeat sales are just so important in business, aren't they? And I thought, this guy is, I was really impressed.
And I think that's a lesson for all of us, isn't it? In that we all need a system to follow up people. We all need a system to keep in contact. We all need a system to communicate. And I think a garage is a great example with an MOT, isn't it? That we've got to have our
Yeah,
certificate every 12 months. So actually, it's easy for a garage to follow up. But also, as business people, whatever business we're in, there's an easy way for us to follow up. Because I'm also a great believer of out of sight, out of mind, is
yeah,
that if I contact you, then invariably there'll be something we can do. So what we tend to do as well is that we would contact our client base every 3 months. And then all it will be saying is, Neil, I just wonder how things are going. Is there anything you need any help with? And that's all it is. It's not,
yeah,
and invariably we'll have 20 to 30% of people will contact us. I've been meaning to speak to you, Paul, about this, or need, thank you for doing that because it's reminding me because I need to do this. And actually,
yes.
I think we all need in business a system, a process to keep in contact with our customers. So Neil, I've really enjoyed today, and thank you for your time. And I think your book's a great book, and I think I love your book for the fact that it's all about stories, and stories are the easiest way to get the message across. And I
Yes.
think if anybody wanted to get in contact with you, Neil, or learn more about you, how would they do that? What's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn or neil@quantum.ie is my email address, neil@quantum.ie. So either of those would be great, Paul.
So Neil, thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah,
I've really enjoyed our time, and I think it's important to actually talk to other people and to share stories so we can all learn from each other. So thank you
yeah,
very much, Neil.
yeah.
Lovely to
Likewise,
speak to you.
Paul. Thanks very much. I really enjoyed it. And some of these stories that maybe I haven't told for a few for a while. So it was great chatting to you. I really enjoyed it. And the story, listen, stories, I could talk all day, but I suppose we'll have to finish it up though at this point. Yes. Thank you very much, Paul.
No problem at all. Thank you then, Neil. Bye bye.
Bye.